Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over the top 10 German cars in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now how cars are getting onto this list is based on a little bit of performance, also a little bit of my personal opinion. There's going to be some cheaper cars on this list, there's also going to be some really expensive cars on this list, there's going to be some good performers and some bad performers. Anyway guys, I'm excited to show you what I have selected for this list. Let's get into it. We're going to start off with number 10. Alright guys, at number 10 we're going to start off with the Sentinel XS. Now this is a car that you can steal directly off of the street in Grand Theft Auto Online, which is how I would recommend to pick this car up. Overall, it's a pretty fantastic car. I really love my Sentinel XS. As you guys can see, I've got it pretty kitted out. This car does have a decent amount of customization, especially for being a car that you can steal directly off of the street. It's also a pretty good performer. It is in the sports car category. It's not going to win you any races, but for free mode, it is a pretty solid car. And again, for being free, you really can't go wrong with a Sentinel XS. You can make this thing look very basic, or you can sort of kit it out like I have mine done. Overall, the vehicle is absolutely awesome. It's actually a super fast car, I gotta give it to it. The Sentinel XS is pretty much as solid as it gets for being a free vehicle. Definitely one of the better free cars in the entire game. I'm not going to drone on about it. I've talked about this car in other videos. It's at number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Alright guys, next up at number 9 we have the Ubermacht Rebla GTS. Now the Rebla GTS is actually one of the fastest SUVs in the game. I think it's within the top 4 if I'm not mistaken. It's a very good vehicle. Obviously being based off of the BMW X5 in real life, at least very heavily based off of that. I don't really know what else it could be based off of, but the Rebla GTS has an absolute ton of customization that you can do to it. You can make this thing look like an X5M, you can make it look like a base model BMW X5. It's got so much that you can do to it. It's so good looking. Overall, just such a good vehicle, and I would highly recommend picking one of these things up. On top of its great looks, it's got the performance to back it up. A very good German SUV within Grand Theft Auto 5. I definitely consider the Rebla to be within my personal top 5 SUVs in the entire game. I absolutely love this thing. You guys should definitely get one for yourselves and customize it if you don't have one already. It is such a solid vehicle. Anyway guys, that is it for number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Alright guys, next up at number 8 we have the BF Club. Now the BF Club has an absolute ton of customization that you can do to it to make it your own, and on top of that it's also the fastest compact car in the game. So within the compacts category, the BF Club is absolutely dominant. There are almost no cars that can even keep up with this thing. It has a lead by a landslide within the compact category. So if you want to win compact races, you need to pick up a BF Club. Now the BF Club is a little bit more on the expensive side, coming in at about $1.3 million if I remember correctly, which is an absolute ton of money. However, it is the best compact vehicle in the game, so it is kind of worth it if you plan on doing some compact races with it. Then you could probably make your money back if you do about 1,000 races. So anyway, you figure it out. But the compact is a very good car. It accelerates well, it handles pretty decently. It is front wheel drive, which is a little bit annoying, but I guess it is realistic. Overall, the Club is a solid vehicle. I've owned one of these for quite some time now. It's definitely won me a fair share of races. Overall, very good car. Would highly recommend picking up a Club, especially if you're into racing. If not, maybe don't pick one up, but it is still a pretty good car. Anyway guys, that is it for number 8. Let's move on to number 7. Alright guys, at number 7 we of course have the Benefactor Shafter V12. Now this is probably one of my favorite Benefactor cars in the entire game. I believe it's also one of the first cars to feature the interior color option, which is really cool. So the Shafter V12 kind of has a lot of respect, from me at least, for what it did for the game. It also is one of the better sounding cars within the game. The exhaust sound on this car is absolutely nuts. There's quite a few Benefactor cars that actually sound really good. And of course the Shafter V12 is one of them. Now the Shafter V12 is also the second fastest sedan in Grand Theft Auto Online within the sedans category. The Shafter V12 is interesting because it's actually a sports car, but it's also in the sedans category. So it is one of very few cars in GTA that's actually within 2 separate categories for racing. So that is pretty interesting. In the sedans category, like I said, it is the second best car, and in the sports category, I don't even know where it is. It's nowhere near the top 10 though. but it is still a really good car. Overall, the V12 accelerates pretty decently. The handling is not the best, I'm not gonna lie. It is a bigger car, obviously. It is a 4-seater with 4 doors, so it's not exactly going to be the greatest sports car ever. However, what this car does do really well is top speed. The top speed on the Schafter V12 is one of the fastest in the entire game for 4-door vehicles, and within the sedans category, I believe that the Schafter V12 is actually undefeated. I believe it has the highest top speed out of any car within the sedans category, so that is pretty darn cool. Overall, the Schafter V12 is definitely a car that I recommend picking up. This thing goes for about $112,000 on Legendary Motorsport, if I do remember correctly, so it's a pretty good deal, especially being that it is the second fastest sedan in the entire game. Anyway guys, the Schafter V12 is a must own as far as I'm concerned. Definitely pick one of these things up if you don't have one already. With that being said, let's move on to number 6. Alright guys, I'm sure you were expecting this car to make an appearance somewhere on this list. It is of course the Benefactor Sterling GT. This is regarded as the best sounding car in the game by a large population of the community. In my personal opinion, it's also the best sounding car in the game. Now, the Sterling GT actually has some pretty good performance. It is one of the best sports classic cars in the game, albeit it's not really going to win you any races, but it is pretty darn quick, and in free mode, it's definitely a pretty quick car. Albeit it's not the quickest, but it's definitely up there. Of course, on top of that, like I mentioned before, it sounds amazing, has really good acceleration as well, decent handling for such an old vehicle as well, and the top speed is alright too. It also has a little bit of customization that you can do to it to make it a little bit more your own, which is of course a nice feature. Who doesn't like to customize cars? Overall, the Benefactor Sterling GT is definitely a car that I would recommend picking up, guys. If you don't have a Sterling GT and you're into cars, I really don't know what you're doing. It's an amazing car. You guys really need to own one if you don't have one already. Anyway guys, that is pretty much it for number 6. We have the Sterling GT, of course. Let's move on to number 5. Okay guys, at number 5 we have the Pfister 811. Now the Pfister 811 is heavily based off of the Porsche 918 Spyder, if you didn't know, which is a really fascinating car in real life. Now the Pfister 811 in GTA is actually a pretty impressive car. Top speed wise, the Pfister 811 is actually one of the quickest vehicles that there is. For a long time, this actually was the fastest car in the game that didn't have a rocket booster attached to it, and I believe it's still within the top 5 to this day. I think the top speed of this is around 132 miles an hour, which might not sound very fast, but within GTA, that is extremely fast. I believe the Pariah is the fastest non-rocket engined car in the game, and I believe its top speed is around 134 miles per hour. So the Pfister 811 is pretty darn close. This is a great vehicle to traverse the map in. In my opinion, it's also a very good looking vehicle from most angles. I think that the front of this car is really what kind of makes the car struggle a little bit. I personally think the back end is really creative looking, and I like it overall. It's not going to be the best car for racing, that's for sure. The 811 does have a really good top speed, but its handling on a racetrack is a little bit less than ideal, but it is still pretty good. Overall, the 811 is definitely a car that I would recommend for free mode more than for racing. Alright guys, at number 4 we have the Pfister Comet SR. This is my personal favorite Comet within Grand Theft Auto Online. I think that the SR is an absolutely fantastic vehicle, and it's also one of the fastest sports cars in the entire game. I believe it's within the top 5, if not within the top 7 for sure. At least at the time of recording this video, I should say. Now, the Pfister Comet SR basically takes the regular Comet from online and makes it better in every single way. It accelerates better, it handles way better. The regular Comet is not a great handling vehicle in this game, so having the SR is a very nice addition. In comparison to all of the other Comets in the game, the SR actually blows every single one of them out of the water in pretty much every category, except for the Pfister Comet S2. That is really good top speed wise, but it would get absolutely walked by an SR on a track. Overall, the SR accelerates well, handles extremely well, like I mentioned. It doesn't have a very good top speed because it's more of a track focused car, I feel like. but top speed, like I mentioned way earlier in the video, doesn't always really matter. On top of that, the SR also has some really good customization. You can make this thing look like a pretty extreme Porsche 911, or you can make it look like a pretty tame one. Overall, the SR is a fantastic vehicle. You guys should definitely pick one of these things up if you don't have one already. I would highly recommend this car for sure. Anyway guys, that is it for number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Alright guys, at number 3 we have the Obey 8F Drafter. This is a really solid car, coming in at just over $700,000. This is one of the cheapest and best cars on this entire list. Now, $700,000 isn't exactly super cheap, but it is pretty affordable these days in Grand Theft Auto Online, at least in my opinion. Now, the Obey 8F Drafter handles really well, accelerates super well, doesn't have the greatest top speed ever, I'm not gonna lie, but the other good features about this car make up for that. Now, the launch off the line is pretty fantastic. Obviously, this thing is based off of an Audi RS5 or an S5 or even an A5 in real life, so it is of course four-wheel drive, as Audis are pretty famous for. Now, the 8F Drafter is also one of very few cars in the game to actually have access to a super transmission, which is a great option. Definitely helps the car accelerate a little bit quicker, which is very nice. Obviously, the 8F also has an absolute ton of customization that you can do to it, which is another great feature. I mean, we love to customize cars, at least I do, that's for sure. Now, my one beef with the 8F Drafter is it does have a little tiny bit of understeer, which is a little bit annoying, but it could be a lot worse, and it's definitely not the end of the world. There are plenty of great features about this car that completely make up for the tiny little bit of understeer. I think it's a fantastic looking car, definitely a really good performing car, and definitely a car that everyone should own. 8F Drafter is solid, boys. Pick one up if you don't have one already. Let's move on to number 2. Alright guys, next up we have the Benefactor Schlagen G. Did you really? No, you didn't. No, I know. Oh, I know you didn't just do that. Oh man. As I was saying, we have the Benefactor Schlagen GT at number 2. Now, this is a really good car in my opinion. Oh, dude, the tow truck company that clears traffic here, they are really on it. That dude is gone with his car already, just like that. That's actually kind of crazy. As I was saying, the Schlagen is a fantastic car. Sounds really good. I think it has the same sound as the Schafter V12. If not, it has a very similar sound to it, which is good because the Schafter V12 sounds incredible. So this thing actually does as well. Even if it's not the same sound, I'm trying to picture it in my mind, and I think it's a very similar sound if it's not the same one. Anyways, beyond the sound of it, the Schlagen GT is a fantastic handling car. It accelerates well, has a pretty decent top speed, albeit it's not one of the fastest sports cars in the game. It's probably within the top 20 or top 30 realistically, so it's not going to win you any races. The Schlagen, in my opinion, is definitely more suited as being a car for free mode. This thing is really good in free mode. I mean, if you want to drift this car, you can do it. The handling is very similar to the Gauntlet Hellfire. If you guys have ever driven a Hellfire, I would assume most of you have. I would compare the handling, or at least the handling ability of the Schlagen GT to the Gauntlet Hellfire. Now, I'm not saying that this thing can't go around a corner, because it certainly can. However, it has the ability to double clutch, and what I mean by handles like the Hellfire is if you want to do a burnout circle with the Schlagen, it is very easy, and if you want to drift with the Schlagen, it is very easy. If you just pop the handbrake, this car is absolutely fantastic at drifting. You can pretty much drift any corner very comfortably. Very similar to the Gauntlet Hellfire if you guys have driven that, like I mentioned. So overall, the Schlagen is a fantastic handling car. It accelerates great. It looks absolutely incredible. I don't know if I've talked about that yet. I can't really remember, but it's a fantastic looking car. Has a ton of customization that you can do to it. Overall, the Schlagen GT, like pretty much every other car on this list, I would definitely recommend picking it up. Obviously, these are all cars that I really like, so I'm going to recommend you guys to buy all of them, of course. So, you know, take your picks and buy what you want. Or don't buy any at all. You don't have to do anything that I say. Anyway, guys, that is pretty much it for number 2. Schlagen GT, very solid car. Let's move on to the number 1 German car in Grand Theft Auto Online. Alright guys, next up we have the Benefactor Canis Seminole. Yes, that's right guys, at number 1 we of course have the Canis Seminole. Arguably the greatest German car in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now I know what you're thinking, Jeep is an American company. Why is it on a German car list? Well, the Canis Seminole really knows no borders. The Canis Seminole was not made by an American car manufacturer. It was not made by a German car manufacturer. It was just made. Now, of course, the Canis Seminole is actually faster than the Benefactor Krieger, which is why it has taken its spot rightfully as the #1 German car in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, everyone always goes on that the Krieger's faster than the Seminole. Yeah. No, it's not. The Canis Seminole is the greatest car in all of Grand Theft Auto Online. As you guys can see, this thing is absolutely flying right now. The Canis Seminole also has flawless handling. You can make this thing turn around any corner you want to, as fast as you want to, and it will round it without issue. Obviously, as you guys saw with the video a little bit earlier on in the week, the Canis Seminole is also capable of flight, and it is also capable of underwater traversal, which is just absolutely incredible. What car do you know in GTA that can do all of those things? I mean, there's the Toreador, yeah, but there's also the Canis Seminole, and the Canis Seminole, I mean, it's way faster and way better in every single way. Also, obviously, greatest looking car in all of Grand Theft Auto Online ever. It's just undoubtable. Like, this thing is absolutely incredible. If you guys still don't own a Seminole, I don't know what to say to you other than get your bread up, man. The Seminole's in town, and you gotta get one, man. I mean, it's 30k, and it's the best 30k you will ever spend, hands down. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, a like is of course appreciated. If not, dislike. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.